Yes, we can hear you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm so glad and happy to be here. I'm glad. So please, I want to confirm to me that you're hearing my voice clearly. I had a session last Friday, and from that, I had a call and my voice went. So, and I've been saying that voice, you must call back by today. But it's been progressively improving, and I think, I believe I'm very clear. You can hear me. Is that correct?
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Thank you for the invitation. I've been having conversation with Visionary Dami, and we've been talking about this meeting. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so glad anytime I have the chance to talk with parents, talking about parenting, which is very important. It's my joy to really be talking about this, and I want to salute the great work that you are doing in Families Arising. And I love the name Families Arising. Recently, we just rebranded from Parenting Grace as the main name to Rise to Parent. I believe that God is just, sending a message to us as families to rise to our role as, leaders in our home, to parent our children, despite all the challenges that we have in this generation. So that's the mind of God. And I believe, and I love the name Families Arising. I've actually considered that name before. So I'm happy to be connecting with the great work that you guys are doing here. And thank you so much for having me. And a shout out to Mrs. Shaya Ashiru, I believe is the convener of Families Arising. Thank you so much for the invitation and for the great work you're doing in the lives of family. God will greatly reward you in Jesus' name. So I will be sharing my screen. First of all, let me be sure. Okay. Just a second. Okay. All right. So, one sec, I'm moving. Yeah. And where is the show button? Please confirm that you can see my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. So the topic before us today, very important topic, especially in today's world and in the world that we live in right now. This is something that is very dear to my heart, and I believe it's dear to God's heart as well. So, strategies for Christian parenting in a digital world. Strategies for Christian parenting in a digital world. For today, I'll be following this outline. We'll be looking at understanding God's agenda for family, which is very key. And then we'll be looking at the challenges that parents are facing in the digital world. And we'll be looking into diving into some practical solutions that we as family can begin to adopt, right away to help us to do the work of parenting effectively according to God's own agenda. And I believe this is very important. I don't know how many minutes I have, so I can effectively manage because there's quite a lot to cover, especially when we get to the practical solutions. I'll see how far I can go. How many minutes do I have, please? Hello?
Hi, I've sent you the message.
Did you? Okay. Where's the chat button? Okay, see the chat. All right, thank you. That's perfect. So I'd like to start with this quote. This is a quote from Professor Nancy Pearson, who is the author of the book Love Thy Body. And she says something very profound. She said, the most powerful worldviews are the ones we absorb without knowing it. They are the ideas nobody talks about, the assumptions we pick up almost by osmosis. I believe this is really very powerful because it really captures what is happening in the digital world. The digital world is in the digital world, it's a battle of influence. It's a battle of influence. So the world is trying to influence us, and in different ways. But sometimes most of those influences are subtle. Like Jim Rohn says, that influence is subtle. You don't even know that somebody is influencing you. And that's how powerful that is. And the world we live in right now, the digital world, what we expose ourselves to has a powerful effect on us. Just as the food we eat nurtures our bodies, the digital content that we consume or our children consume influences their mind, and sometimes it leads us to adopt ideas without even fully realizing that we are adopting certain ideas and ideologies. So what we consume influences us. The ideas we see, what we hear, what we engage with can shape our beliefs. It can change our perspective. Sometimes without us even processing what is happening. In the subconscious, things are changing. And that's how powerful this is. And that leads me to what the Bible also says in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23. And I'm glad that the person, sister coordinating prayer, mentioned this, quoted this scripture. It's very profound. God that sees ahead of time was already telling us, saying that above all, guard your heart with all diligence, because out of it flow the issues of life. TPT says, guard the affection of your heart, for they affect all that you are. Pay attention to the welfare of your innermost being, for from there flows the wellspring of life. It is very important, the heart. And so the world is all about influence. There are different worldview today. And what view do we have as parents? What view will our children adopt? Very important things to consider. And that's why this topic is very crucial. And that takes us to really examine and go back to the basics and know what exactly is God's agenda for families. What is in the heart of God when he was instituting the institution of family? And that we will see in Genesis chapter 1 from verse 26, when God was saying, let us make man in our own image, that they might have dominion, they might rule. So number one agenda of families in the heart of God is so that we could have dominion, so that we could reign, we could subdue, reflect the nature of God, reflect God's nature, take charge. You all know that to take charge is not a child's play. And it's irrespective of where you are, whether you're in Nigeria or you're in diaspora, take charge. Dominion, have dominion, subdue. That's one of the main reasons, main purpose in the heart of God when he was, instituting the family. And that has not changed up to today. And then he says, be fruitful and multiply. So fruitfulness is not only about physical procreation, it speaks to spiritual fruitfulness. Of what use is it for kingdom people, for us to have children who cannot live on the legacy of godliness, carry on the agenda of God in their own generation? So when God was instructing Adam and Eve to be fruitful and multiply, in his mind is that they will be fruitful physically, but then also spiritually, they will be fruitful. It's beyond physical procreation. It speaks of spiritual, fruitfulness, the importance of nurturing and raising children who will continue to fulfill God's purpose on earth. So it's a call to family to raise children who are spiritually fruitful, contributing to the society and the kingdom of God. So that's part of our agenda. We need to keep those, at the center of our hearts, irrespective of all the challenges that we all are facing in this world. And the third thing is to mirror the unity of Godhead. Family is a unit on earth to reflect the unity of the Godhead in heaven. So our society today wants to sow disunity into families. There's a lot happening. There's the agenda of the devil is to really stop the plan of God to sow that seed of disunity amongst husbands and wives. Recently, about 3 weeks ago, people started to send me this news article in the UK, how the police in the UK issued a warning specifically to Nigerian women to stop reporting their husbands to them. What happened is that we have inundated them with data. They have looked at their data, they will say that there's a lot of cases of Nigerian women in reporting their husband on flimsy things. So that really moved them to the point that they have to really release a news article that enough is enough. They will not entertain anything as such anymore. Isn't that shameful? How have we gotten to that point? We were living, however that could be, amicably in a way. In Nigeria, maybe you were tolerating some things, hoping and praying for God to make changes in your family. But right now, we find ourselves in a different environment. We can no longer tolerate each other. And then we are calling on police. We're destroying the family unit. God is saying we need to reconnect back to the essence, to the purpose He has created and instituted family. That's very key. Because when the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable. We live in a world where our society has redefined what family is. They've redefined the purpose of family. Everybody's all about individual happiness, personal fulfillment. I want to make my own money. And we are losing the essence. And God is saying we need to reconnect back to the purpose. He has created us. He has created and instituted family. And the purpose of parenting is to raise children who embody, reflect, and replicate the image of God, promoting the kingdom of God on earth. Like Tony Evans. And that is true. To raise children who embody and reflect and replicate the image of God. Families are often the primary place where faith and values are taught. And that's why the devil is fighting the family. If we must replicate the agenda of God, carry on the legacy of faith from one generation to another, we must pay attention to our families. It means that we must equip ourselves with skills and strategies and whatever it takes to really raise a kingdom family, a spiritual family. One of our mentors, DDK, used to say, if you're not rich or wealthy or spiritual, a spiritual family must emerge out of you. A wealthy family must emerge out of you. That means if parents are not raising their children with kingdom values, those kids are going to get some values elsewhere outside. And those values will likely be cultural values, values of their parents and friends, media values. So the devil is trying all its best to try to stop the propagation of the kingdom agenda for families. Because the chaos that we see in our society today is the absence of parenting. And God is calling us back to reconnect to the purpose for which He has brought family out of us. It's a privilege. Another point I wanted to raise here is the fact that immigration, many of us are in diaspora. Immigration is God's own strategy of propagating the kingdom agenda. Immigration is God's strategy. I saw these statistics and I pulled it up here. Looking at the continent of Africa alone, our population is about 1.3 billion. We have about 54 countries, and we're the second largest continent, following after Asia. And of all of us, Christianity is almost half of African population. We're just like 50%. And the next point there is what got my attention. It says, of the world's evangelical Christians, over 33% live in Africa. 33%, not of the world Christians though. It's not talking about nominal Christians. There's a lot of Christians, Catholic, different organizations, different denominations, I mean. So there's a lot of Christians, but we're talking of evangelical Christians. 33% of the world evangelical Christians live in Africa. And if that is the case, so when immigration happened, when people were moving from Nigeria to UK, Nigeria to Canada, to US, to wherever, I don't want to care what's really the reason why people are moving. Something will really jump you up to really want to take that step. But behind that is the agenda of God to propagate his kingdom. Imagine 33% of evangelicals. Some of us are moving to another country, increasing the percentage. Now, when I got to, my family lived in Canada for some years. When we were there about 8 years ago, the church we attend is an evangelical church, a white church. And one of the customs of the pastor is whenever there's a new person in the church, he goes to their home, he visits them in their home. So he came to visit us at our home. And we got talking about Christianity, our journey of faith from Africa, Nigeria, and all that. And he was talking to us. And then we asked the question, what's the percentage of Christians in Canada? At that time, he told us it was around 8%. And then he added that it just recently, due to immigration, that the percentage increased to about 10 or 11%. Meaning that the percentage of Christian, evangelical Christian, is really moving to different parts of the world, be it Europe, because Europe is the least evangelical continent. They have about 2%. And so we find ourselves in the UK, we find ourselves in Canada, in US, wherever we may be. One thing God is wanting us to know is that do not forget the reason why you're there. The essence. That's why he said, go and make disciples of all nations. Go and make disciples of all nations. To the disciples in those days, means them going out into, God, Jesus sent them out. But to us, it might mean leaving Nigeria, going to where you are. And as you're there, with the mandate of dominion, what will you do? How will you take charge? What would that look like for you? And that's the question each of us needs to ask God. What would that look like for me? So for some of us, it might not mean opening a church. It might not mean going to the streets and preaching to people one-on-one. So in whatever field of influence we are, what's the agenda of God? The point here is that immigration is God's strategy, and we shouldn't allow the devil to derail us from the essence and the purpose and plan of God. As I was planning for this meeting and I was asking, what should I really bring to the people? One of the scriptures that God laid upon my heart brought to me, which I've never even seen the scripture in that light before, was this Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 14. And it says, this was a message, the words of Nehemiah to the people of Israel when they were rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. And he said to them, after I looked things over, I stood up and said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, he said, don't be afraid of them. Do not be afraid. And it's the same word for us today. There's so many things that will make us go, wow, parenting in the digital world. Now what's happening to our kids today? Yes, there are issues. I agree. But in the midst of it, God is saying, do not be afraid of it. Do not be afraid of those vices. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome, and fight for your families. Fight for your sons, fight for your daughters, for your wives, for your husbands, for your homes. Fight. So it means that we cannot fold our hands and say, this generation, there's nothing I can do. It's the digital age. No, there are a number of things that we can do. God is saying we need to fight. We need to, whatever that may be. And I'm going to share some strategies with us. Fight for your families. We must be seen as fighting for our loved ones, for our sons that are in schools. We must fight for them. In the digital world, we must fight for their heart. Guard your heart, Bible says. We must fight for that. No matter what that challenge is, negative influences, social media, morals, we must fight. It's a call to us as parents, as leaders, as individuals, to fight our families. And that takes us to the next point where I've started to share about the challenges that we have, the children, we parents are facing in the digital age. I've just highlighted a number of them, but this might not capture everything, but most of the things regarding digital world. And we'll go over them. I won't spend too much time here because we have to go into the solutions and things that we can begin to do. So number one thing here is navigating online influences and social media. As parents, we struggle to control the vast amount of information our children are bombarded with online. Those information, those contents, and influences that our children encounter on a daily basis. So social media platforms, as we all know, expose children to unrealistic standards, cyberbullying cases, online harassment, harmful trends on TikTok, on different things. And this is making it hard for us as parents to really monitor what's age appropriate. How can we instill values in our children's life despite all these challenges? And if we are not careful, this can negatively impact on children's self-esteem because of the things that they see online. Changes in their behavior, mental health issues. There's a lot of anxiety, depression. You hear it here and there. And sometimes even the thought of self-harm. We've had cases. There's a lot of things shifting the minds of kids. There's a lot of things that they're seeing online, a lot of influences. These are big issues. Also, screen time and addiction. We see the amount of time that our children spend on screen. Maybe they're even doing their homework. Legitimate reason to be there. Also, some of them use it for entertainment, socialization. They spend a lot of time. We don't know how to really strike a balance. How do we monitor? How do we say this is enough? And we know the addictive nature of the social media, video games, and all those. These are challenges confronting all of us parenting in the digital age. So, because if we don't control that, kids can begin to have unhealthy attachment, to technology. That is difficult. You must have seen videos of even toddlers where they are so engrossed in technology that you take that laptop or iPad from them. You see them rolling and crying and screaming. There's a lot happening. Such that the American Association of Pediatrics has to be saying you shouldn't give gadgets to your kids less than 2 years. But I understand parenting is hard. But there we need to be mindful of screen consumption, addictive nature of social media and technology and games. Also, we have exposure to unfiltered content. That's a challenge for us as parents. The internet is filled with inappropriate, harmful content. And I want to tell us that the internet was not designed with children in mind. It wasn't designed with them in mind. It was designed for business. So the effects, what we are seeing today and witnessing is what we call unintended consequences of the evolution or innovation of technology. There are certain unintended consequences, such that the tech guru are sitting there and saying, what have we done? I've read a number of articles, watched a number of documentaries on that, and they're like, what have we done to the generation of children? And it was an afterthought that when people start to make noise, that they started to put some measures in place. So kids could be exposed to inappropriate content. Younger ones, they stumble on content that they shouldn't be seeing. You know that many of those people, they also have sponsored advertisements slotted in between cartoons and things that children are watching. And they're specifically targeted at children, not at adults. There are pornography content that pops up. I've read so many articles on that. And then, I don't know if anybody is in Canada, you should be following Focus on the Action for Canada. There's a number of things that they bring to limelight. And they're fighting right now in the government to make the pornography industry to put age restriction, because there are too many children that are addicted to pornography. I'm talking about from age of 6, 7, 8. Because parents are busy. Kids are encountering all this inappropriate content every time, messing up their innocence. I always say that the internet is not a playground. It's not a playground. We need to do better to protect the innocent one, the children that God has given unto us, to really influence for His kingdom. Because there are so many influences contending for their attention. And then so Action for Canada is trying to for the industry, the porn industry, to put regulations, age restriction, age verification on their side. And they're pushing back. You will think that's a good thing, but they're pushing back because they know what they're doing. Their intention is to get the children early, get them hooked on pornography, and then get them hooked for life, because that's a long-term business for them. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. They are contending for the attention of our children. The next point, peer influence, shifting parental authority. And we know today that our children are digital natives. These are children, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. I have a Gen Z in my house. I have a Gen Alpha. These are kids that were born, maybe from 1995. These are Gen Zs. They are digital natives. They've never known a world without technology. Many of us are parents in the late 30s, 40s, early 40s. Many of us, when we were growing up, there was no technology. Technology met us on earth. But our children today are digital natives. So they are vast, they know what is happening. And so there is peer influence. So kids begin to feel that they know more than parents. And when that happens, there's loss of respect. There's a book I read by Dr. Leonard Sachs called The Collapse of Parenting. And he said in that book that in the 50s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the shows on TVs, on medias that portray parents, fathers, mothers as the leaders of the home, that portray them as the authority figure, that shows them respect. Many of those shows were popular in those days. And he compares them to these days, at this day and age. We have a lot of shows online that portray parents as dumb, as someone that doesn't know anything. And because of that, there's loss of respect. In the name of a joke, in the name of things, there's so many programs, soap operas, and all the things on TV, shows that portray parents as unintelligent. And the more our kids begin to watch such, they will lose respect if we are not careful. If we are not balancing those, or we are not being careful in really selecting what kind of movies or shows that they watch. And they also, so the voices of their peers outside might begin to make more sense to them than the voices of their parents. So, and when this happens, it can create what we call a breakdown in parents-child communication. It can create a breakdown in that relationship. Another problem is our kids are tech savvy. Their generation, there's always that gap. We parents are trying to catch up. Kids know a lot about technology. Many parents are struggling. So if this is not happening, if this is the case, sometimes it's difficult for parents to really put in place proper supervision of what kids are consuming online. Because kids can outsmart parents if you're not careful. You are trying to set appropriate boundaries for technology, but you don't fully understand the gaming platform. Your kids understand, they know how to bypass. So it means that it's more than rules. We have to really talk to them and send a message that connects to their hearts. So because these kids know more, it can create a gap in opportunity for parents. It can create a gap. So there's an opportunity for children to begin to bypass the rules that we put in place. They hide activities online. They become more secretive about their online activities. That's a big issue. I also want to put this here. Parents today are busier. They're very busy. So there's lack of time, adequate time to spend with our children, especially many of us in diaspora, where we don't have house help like we had in Nigeria. We're busy. We have to put food on the table. Some of us work multiple jobs. We're juggling from here and there, to meet all those financial demands. These are legitimate concerns. You need to make money, but at the same time, we need to find time for the kids. We need to strike a balance. And this is a big challenge for parents. And this might not be going away so soon, but we need strategy. If this is not going away, if we're not going to become less busy so soon, we need strategies. And last challenge I want to say is conflicting sexual ideologies. We today in our schools, in the society, in the institutions, there's infiltration of the liberal approach to sexuality education. This itself is a big area that we can spend the whole day talking about it. From what brought about the sexual revolution and how that has led us to where we are today. So it's not about that they're pushing kids to have sex alone, but it's about the different ideologies and agenda. There is erosion of parental influence. And many parents are worrying about their kids, growing in this environment. These are legitimate concerns. But then let's begin to look at problems. I'm going to really group them into three. Okay, before I do that, I'll talk about this statistic, which is just corroborating what I've just said, the problems I've highlighted. This is a statistic, I'm a data person. So this is a statistic done by Pew Research Center. And they're talking about, they put up this question out there, how hard is parenting today compared to 20 years ago? And over 66%, two-thirds of parents say that parenting is harder today than 20 years ago, with technology like social media, smartphones being cited as a reason. And we can see all the different reasons there. Technology in general, social media in general, changing morals. There's more violence, there's drugs. Technology giving access to children, even from younger age. Things are more expensive. Parents have to work more jobs. They get busier. Today in some countries, Western countries, to discipline your kids the way you know how to discipline Nigeria is no longer the way. You can't do that. So we need different strategies, parenting skills. So parents are facing more judgments in the same society. So more device distractions. There's a lot of them. It just corroborating what we have said. So there's data saying that. Of course, there's like 20% of people that says technology has its own benefit. Of course, we all know technology has its own benefit because it's giving us access. The kind of meeting we are having right now is because of technology. So it's good. Technology is good in itself. But like I said, there are some unintended consequences impacting on families, and we need to start to pay attention to. So what solutions? I'm going to bypass this one. It's another data. Let's quickly move, because of our time, to the practical solution for successful parenting. And I'm going to group them into three. We look at navigating technology and social media. We look at sexual, ideologies, and then we'll talk about strategies for busy parents. So, navigating technology and social media. What are the things we need to begin to do as kingdom parents? We need to create structures and routines. That's very important. When we have structure and routines, we create boundaries in our homes. It brings orderliness. It helps our children to feel secure and stable. When there is chaos, children don't know what to do next. There's no defined routine and structure. It's more challenging. It leads to behavioral problems. Kids feel safe and secured with structures. So as families, we need to start from there. We can't be running our homes without structures. Kids don't know what to do next. There's no guidelines. It's not that we arrange them and plan every time. We're going to put some free play time, but at the same time, there should be a structure. And we must begin to implement it. The second point I want to say, we need to set technology boundaries and rules. And this is one of the most important steps we can take, especially in today's world of distraction of technology. Set limits, set rules, and communicate those rules to your kids around technology. It's very important. Sometimes we need to involve our kids. Okay, I think that's my next point. Involve children in setting those digital boundaries. So number 2 is saying you should set those boundaries, but very important that we have to put in another number is that you need to involve those kids. Why? Because we want to get buy-in. We want to get their buy-in. In project management, we talk of getting buy-in of stakeholders. It's very important if you want your project to be successful. The same thing for families. You can't just create rules and just dump it on kids. You won't get a lot of adoption of those rules as against where you have conversation with them, age-appropriate conversation with them, and let them have their say in that digital rules that you're setting. Involve children. You know, sometimes you might have to call a family meeting and talk to them. Maybe something you have not been doing before. Family meeting is a very useful tool. And tell them the reason why things needs to change. Educate them about dangers of technology and all that. Ask them, what do you think would be a reasonable amount of time that we should spend on technology, that you should spend on technology? Hear what they're going to say. And balance that up. Educate them on reasons why things have to be certain way. When you sit down together with children to create a role, not only for them, but for us also as parents, there is a sense of joint ownership. You have collaboration, and they are more likely to really go by those rules. Therefore, also hand it over to them. Number 4 points I want to say here is we need to educate ourselves as parents. Like I said, we are not digital natives. They are digital natives. But we need to bridge the gap. We need to be seen as trying. I know there's a lot to cover. There's a lot to catch up on. And we would never 100% catch up with those kids, right? But then we need to be moving behind them step by step. We need to be, latching on. We need to be bridging the gap and closing the gap as much as possible. You need to make an effort. Learn those platforms that your kids are. If your kids are already on social media or they're already playing some game, find time to really know the dangers of those games. What should they do? What kind of game is this? What kind of cartoon am I leaving my kids to watch? This information are not far-fetched, actually. We need to really, really make an effort. There's no excuse. If we're going to raise kids whose hearts is really nurtured for God in this day and age, we must do our own. We must do our own bits. Familiarize yourself. There's no excuse. There are times that my kids want to play a game. When my son was younger in Canada, maybe he was like 8, 7. Oh, this is the game people are playing. Oh, I want to play Fortnite. What's that one again? Fortnite and Roblox and all that. I have documents. I have articles on each of those apps that I would sit down and read. The pros and the cons, the skills they are learning. We cannot be ignorant. I will sit with them and I will tell you, this is what this is. This is what it does. This is what you should use it for. Don't do this one. We must really close the gap. We can do that. Your kids are already on Snapchat or TikTok. TikTok, wow. There's a lot of influence, a lot of things going on with TikTok that even the government in US are considering banning TikTok in US. Our kids are there, they're feeding on it, and we don't know what's happening. No, unacceptable. Number 5, establish an open dialogue about online safety. It's essential to foster that open communication with children. Let them be able to talk to us. One of the policies in our home is that nothing is off the table. There's nothing my kids cannot come back and tell me. Nothing is off the table. And you'll be shocked the kind of things that kids are hearing in school. You'll be shocked. There's nothing as raw that they're hearing that my daughter, they won't come and tell me. Because we have created that atmosphere of open communication. Myself will be there, my husband will be there, and I will be talking. Really? Is that what is happening? And then we'll all be exchanging ideas. Imagine kids have nowhere to really say something because we also are so ashamed. That's why we wrote that book, How to Talk to Your Kids About Sex Without Shame, about sexuality. Bring that shame out of it and bring conversation to the limelight. Know what is happening. Establish that open communication. Know what is happening for your kids. Unfortunately, kids are being cyberbullied and their parents never knew. I watched an article, a documentary about a girl named Amanda Todd. If you're in Canada, that happened in Canada. So when we were in Canada, my daughter was even the one that brought that to me because they shared it with them in school. I said, Mommy, there's this documentary. You need to see about this girl. A teenager. She should be like 12, 13. But in our room is a technologist. She has a computer to herself, free internet, no restriction whatsoever. Parents are doing their own thing in the living room anytime. So she's already there, going to different sites, having different friends online. To the point, and she joined a community of people, young people, where they can showcase their talent. She will once in a while sing, and people will, give her accolades. Wow, beautiful. Until one person start to, message her and tell her that, oh, you're beautiful, and they're trying to groom and to make her feel comfortable with them. After a while, the person told her, after not the first day, these people, they know what they're doing. After a while, they told her to really flash them. Flash means to open your body and expose your breast. And then unknowingly, because she's not talking to anybody, parents are busy. She did that unknown to her. The boy has already taken a picture of her. And that was where the horror started. He started posting that information online, telling her that you need to give me this money or I'll post this. You need to give me this money, I'll post. And then it started taunting her that she felt she was so traumatized. At some point, she needs to leave the school because the person kind of posted it, threatened to post it in the school website of school platform, social media platform, where other people will see. She left that school, went to another school. The person still continued to taunt her until she killed herself. Very, very traumatized. She took her own life. And I watched that documentary, and the mother was weeping. And I couldn't help but weep. How did we get here? We must know what is happening. I need to start from right now. I want to stop from sharing too many examples so we can run through this. Number 6 is implement parental control. If you don't have it, you must have it. It's a must. Start from there. Internet filtering and monitoring device, it's very essential for every family in today. You need to filter out inappropriate content in your home, not only for your children, for yourself. You need to set limits for screen time. You need to be able to monitor how long your kids have spent online, what site have they gone to. All these things are statistics that those software gives. I've always used that. They are useful, but one thing we need to do is to balance monitoring with trust as well. What you must have it. Number 7, teach digital literacy and critical thinking. Let kids be able to reason. And that comes when we have time with them, when we are able to talk and create scenarios and have conversation and hear their opinion. Teach them to really consider what they're consuming, what they're seeing critically. Social media can affect a lot of people, children, self-image, body image, self-esteem. So we need to start to have those conversations with our kids. Teach them digital literacy, what is harmful, what they should do, what they shouldn't do, how to use. Use teachable moments. I use teachable moments. And I watch documentaries. There's some documentaries, once I've watched it, and I see that, this is appropriate. I sit down with my kids and we watch together. And then we start to converse and have conversation around it. What do you think? Do you realize what is happening? There's one documentary, if you have not watched it, I recommend it. It's called Social Dilemma. You will see all these documentaries by tech gurus and how they're telling us that they created this thing, but they don't even allow their kids to engage with it. What does that tell us? We need to be careful. We need to teach our kids. We need to use every teachable moment to really engage them. Model responsible use. Of course, we can't lead our children where we have not been to, where we have not gone. We cannot continue to say, follow me, without us even going where we're talking about. We have to walk the talk. We have to be doing it. We have to be a model for them. We have to demonstrate responsible use. If they see us constantly scrolling through our social media during family dinners, where we have already make a rule, how do you want to correct them to stop doing that? We need to really model responsible technology use for them. Encourage balanced offline activity. There's so many other activities that we can slot in for our kids, especially if we have a routine. Reading, encourage them to read. Kids will naturally want to gravitate towards screen, games, and all that. Parents are constantly, we all are in the same boat together, constantly pulling them out and redirecting them to what is useful. Help them to set healthy balance between online and offline life. The last thing I want to say here, use technology as a tool for family bonding. That's very key. Sit down together and watch movies together. Sometimes as parents, daddy, mommies, find time and play games with your kids. I know it can be very busy. My husband is very busy. But 2 weeks ago, he had to create time and 2 months fun. We're going to play games together. He was very happy. So they created an account and then he was playing game with me. Fun time. I'll give you some strategies on how to create those time. So let's move to the next one without wasting time. Sorry, I wanted to give you some guidelines on technology rules, areas in which you can set rules, use technology. So one of these can help you to create a technology rule in your home. Here are a few things that you can include. The use of technology should be in a common area. I want to tell you, no child needs technology. No child needs a phone or a laptop in their rooms. There should be no closed door use of technology as much as possible. Create screen-free zone at home. Especially during mealtime in our home. During mealtime, even if I mistakenly have my home, my son will collect it from me. We are eating together. They're not supposed to be on technology. There should be open door policies while using technology. Beware of shutdown behavior. Shutdown behavior is when you come in and your son is quickly shutting off their laptop. That's shutdown behavior. That cannot help you to trust them, to talk about that. There shouldn't be anything of sort. You need to address it. Username, passport, if they have accounts, we should know. It's not that we're going to be stalking them, but we should conduct periodic checks because we are the parents. These kids are still vulnerable. On the internet, they are vulnerable. On social media, they are vulnerable. We need to know what is going on. So we are the parents and we are responsible for their safety. We are responsible for their safety. Train them as well. So put all these things in your technology plan. Okay, let's go to conflicting sexual ideologies. I'm just going to breeze through this. There's a lot to talk about here. Provide a strong foundation of family values. That's very important. We should have our family values. Kids should be clear what your family represents and what your family stands for. Make it tangible. Put your family values on the wall. Let them see. We have family values for many years. So any of my child that can talk right now, ask them what's a family, but they can tell you. You make an acronym from it. It's on the wall in every house that we have lived in. So that when kids are misbehaving, you're redirecting them to those values. It's clear in their mind what this family stands for. We have to be clear. We have to set those strong family values for our kids. We have to be intentional about teaching them. Because children who have clear sense of their family beliefs and values, they are less likely to be swayed by external influences. They are less likely. And you have to have regular discussion around those family values. The devotion, every time. We can't be too busy for that. We cannot be too busy. Regular conversation, devotion time, stories, and kids' love story. When we're doing devotion, I could demonstrate. I could use related, example that's related to them. They will be captivated. We need to start to have those conversations to really instill those values in them. But if they are not clear, they won't know what we stand for. They'll be influenced by external influences. Remember where what God is asking us to do. We must be intentional and start with establishing what our families stands for. Engage in proactive communications with school when you're concerned about sexual content in materials that's being taught in school. I've lived in Canada and I've walked in the corridors of this agenda. I started in schools, and that experience made me to have good understanding of what is happening in school, how they're taught, how there's even LGBTQ associations or, clubs in schools. I know all that. and happen in that corridor. So if you're concerned about it, you have the right to really ask your kids to really excuse your child out of those classes. As far as I know, the law has not gotten to that place where they say it's compulsory. As long things that are relating to sexuality, and I've done that a couple of times. I did that in Canada. There are times that my kids have told the teacher, okay, I've got an email because they're supposed to tell you if they want to teach something like this, that this is going to be taught. Can I have the content of what will be taught? I want to be sure that I've spoken to my kids about it because I like to be the first person to teach them on this crucial conversation. And they say, oh, yeah, because it's my right. And then they give me the materials. If I see that I have not really spoken to my child about that, I ensure that I teach her, get the materials, put additional resources, and teach her and infuse my own values in it. Teachers will not put your values in that. They will teach the curriculum. They will teach what the ideologies have told them to do. They will not slot in your values for you. So I ask kids, teachers, can you excuse my daughter from that class? So when it's time for them to teach, to do that, they will take her to the library or somewhere else to engage in something else. That happened in Canada. I did that. And I also did that recently in UK, where I am right now. This one is even more appalling, if you have to call it that way. I got that email. This is going to be taught in school. And I had to tell the teacher, I've composed an email that, thank you for this information. I'd like to be the first teacher of my daughter. I would like to support her in this knowledge. Could you give me the resources of what will be taught in class? And I've told many parents, we need to start to do that. We need to really be active in the education of our kids before they infuse in them the doctrine and the worldview that is not kingdom related, that is not kingdom aligned. And then, first of all, I sent that, they didn't get back to me. It was like 2 days to that. I'm like, these people have not got to me. I called the school authority. I called and I was asking for this, but nobody has gotten back to me. Oh, they said, oh, we're sorry. They apologized. And then asked the teacher to send to email me. The teacher emailed me and sent me the content. I opened that content. I went to the website. Of course, I saw more. And even to the slides of what they will be taught. This is teaching first-time sex, how to get consent, the use of condom, all those things with pictures, graphics on the bed, with things. When I showed my husband, he was livid. He was like, what is this? And from there, we said, well, of course, she can't be in that class. This is just like last year. And that day, she didn't go to school. It could be that she's sitting out of the class or she's just not going. And throughout that class, when she go back to school, the friends were asking, why, say, my parent doesn't want me to listen to that. I think, and they say, oh, you're lucky. Because many of those kids, you know what? Not all of them are ready for such information. It's really even sometimes very uncomfortable for the teachers that are teaching. Some of our friends are saying you're lucky that you are not there. Let me quickly run. I don't want to share too many examples anymore. Teach children critical thinking skill and discernment. This is very important. Let them begin to question things. So we can't overly shield them entirely from the conflicting ideologies. They need to know. That's why in my book, I said, you need to teach kids about, they need to know what sexuality, homosexuality, and all that. Many of us are coming from Nigeria, like, because we are not really familiar with that in Nigeria. And then you say, what's all these things? Even parents don't even know what those things are. You need to educate yourself because your kids will hear about them in class, in school. There are teachers that are LGBTQ promoting the agenda for kids. And that's happened with my daughter's class. They're trying to, invite them to gay straight alliance in Canada. She came back and said, this is what the teacher was saying. We have teachers that are LGBTQ advocates. Parents need to know. We are kingdom people. We need to know the tactics of the devil, and we need to be prepared and ready, battle ready. With prayer, of course. Number 4, seek faith-based support network. Seek faith-based support network. That's very important. Come together. I will share examples on this. Because before I got a job in Canada that took me into the government, in the Ministry of Education, I was working in school for a couple of years. And then I was part of a group, Christians, that we came together. We said, this ideology they are pushing in schools, we don't want this. Is not, we're coming together, we're having meetings, and we were going to write letters to the Ministry of Education to really say no to this. So I was part of the people there. But then in the midst of that, I was wanting to change my job. Then I got a job in the Ministry of Education. Lo and behold, the cubicle where I got the job, the next analyst sitting beside me is the one working on the LGBTQ implementation in schools. I'm like, God, why did you bring me here? Why did you bring me here? And with that experience those years, I got to know what parents don't know, what many parents are oblivious of, and how the agenda is pushed, how they're even monitoring how many primary schools have gay clubs, how many people are there, and empowering kids to be able to talk to their teachers or principals to establish those clubs. And I began to ask, if kids can establish these clubs, why can't we have kids that will establish fellowships? Because I reflected back on Scripture Union is where I got born again in my secondary school. It had this profound influence on my faith journey. A lot's happening. And I began to tell parents, this is what is happening. You need to start to engage your kids. You need to start to talk to them. There's a lot happening. So find a community of people and join forces together with them. Provide children, develop age-appropriate counter narratives. Very important. Provide kids with age-appropriate explanation of what is happening. There's a lot of things they will see in the society. They will see men kissing, women kissing. We need to be able to talk to our kids on what is happening. Because we don't want them to go outside. And that's the fourth place where they are hearing about this sexuality content. They are seeing all this things. And somebody is talking to them. And we have never had conversation around this. Because you don't know that first message that a child hears is very important. It has a long way to form a basis through which they filter every other thing. So we must be the first teacher. We must develop age-appropriate counter narratives. It's very important. Number 6, encourage respect for different perspectives. Encourage respect. The fact that we disagree with those ideologies, somebody will be disrespectful. I've had somebody that was a friend in Canada that really helped me when I was looking for a job. She didn't even tell me she was LGBTQ, a lesbian, until when, and she was so nice. The day she told me, thank God helped my emotion, because you have to be emotionally intelligent. She didn't even see, there was no expression on my face. I said, wow, okay. She was talking about her partner. And she said, of course, you know I'm lesbian. I said, oh, all right, okay. This is months after I've been meeting her, we have been talking. We need to show respect for them, because this Christ died for them. Many of them don't know. They are products of what the media has projected to them, what they have been taught. And if you think from that perspective, you will have pity for them and you will pray for them. I started praying for her. Many of them, when they know the true God, then they will like, what have I believed? What have I seen? Where did all this message come from? That's the encounter that we should be praying for them. So we teach children to also respect their peers that have different opinions. Model calm and respectful disagreement. If you have to go to school to talk about things like this, we need to be calm. We need to really practice that emotional intelligence. We need to have conversation. We need to be able to take people's perspective. It's called perspective taking. Take other people's opinion and perspective. It might be different from yours. You don't have to disagree, or you don't have to fight over it, or be disrespectful. You must still be able to have calm conversation, respectful disagreements when causing this kind of conflicting ideologies. It's very important. Stay informed about local laws and rights. Know the rights of children. Know the rights of the rights you have as a parent. One of the rights you have is that you can ask school about the content that you want to teach your kids. You can excuse your kids from school, from that class. Know about the school art. If there's anything like that in your country. I also say collaborate with like-minded parents. There might be parents in your network that have same mindset about this kind of thing. Come together and see how you can support each other. Air your own opinion, let your voices be heard. Lastly, leverage home education. There's some people that have taken, a lot of white people are taking their kids out of school because of these ideologies. Not everybody will be able to do that. Not everybody will be able to do that. If you're able to do that, that's okay. That's okay. Another thing we can do is to equip our kids to be light in the midst of that. It's a lot of work. The easiest thing people do is to withdraw. And I've learned about statistics. They say millions of parents are taking their kids out of school. And when I work with the Ministry of Education in Canada, we saw the data rise about how the large volume of parents that are really demanding to go for options to pick their kids up to do homeschool, because they are pulling their kids out of this ideology. But the data is not really showing so much the discrepancy, because immigration is coming in and it's filling the gap of the locals that are taking their kids out of school. So the data is not apparent. That's what is happening. But if you're not able to take your kids out of school, there are things you could do. I'm not taking my kids out of school. I'm trusting that God is helping us. So that's what I will have. And last thing, I will quickly run through. If we do not have time, this is very important, because time is the currency of intimacy, of connection with our children, especially in today's world. If we are not there, I'm sorry, they'll be influenced by external influences. I know we have to juggle too many priorities, but then we have to set time for our families. In the midst of that business, we need to refine time. And one of the ways in which we can do that is to set priorities. Let's set priorities. It might mean choosing a job that is paying a bit less over the one that's paying high. The one that's paying less will give you more time and more flexibility to spend time with your family than the one that is really paying high. What will you choose? That's the test of our priority. If family is important to you, you won't take that and really take time to spend time with your family. When I first got to Canada, I was coming from the oil and gas industry. And I was like, I need a transition job. I didn't want to go back to the oil and gas. I don't want to be busy in a foreign land that I have no help. I want to be available for my kids. And I was saying, when I look at all the different jobs I can start with, of course, I don't want any fast-paced organization anymore. If I'm going to get a job, it will be government. And I kept applying in government. But before I got that, I had to take a job in school. Two things, because I'm going to learn from how they teach kids in that environment. Secondly, because it's going to give me more time. As school is closing, I'm closing. In no time, I'm at home with my kids. And I did that for a couple of years. It was not paying me as high as I was earning where I was coming from, but I was able to pay my bills. So we need to set priorities. Very key, very important. Also, create routines that include connection time. I've talked about routine earlier on, but in your routine, put connection time. If it is in the evening when I come back, at least I'll spend 10 minutes with my child, with each child, for them to talk to you about their days, what happened in school, who are their friends, what happened. If you don't have that time, you won't know a lot of things is happening. Please find that time, connection time. Also, establish a routine that includes, that's what I've said. Establish a routine that includes connection points. And that's repeating that. Anyways, encourage independence and responsibility in kids. Let your kids be responsible. Give them opportunity to develop that responsibility so they can be able to do things. Because sometimes parents have gone out and kids are just, I have cases of people in UK, they've gone to work and before you know it, kids are just left unattended at home. That is not right. We need to prioritize children's safety. We need to look at the age of the kids and be able to really help them to develop some level of independence and responsibility so that they can take care of themselves in a way. I had to put my kids out of school, a school that I have to drive them so that they could be taking bus, because when they take bus, they'll be able to develop their responsibility. They were like ages 10 and 7 at that time. They follow each other in the morning, take the bus, because at that age, they're able to take the bus on their own instead of me going to drop them. So that helped them to develop that sense of responsibility for themselves. You want to keep your kids so that they will be able to develop that and also have open conversation with them. Kids will understand. Tell them this is what is happening. Mommy and daddy needs to work. We need to work. But at the same time, we want you to also develop some responsibility yourself. We want you to understand the financial situation. And then we know we're doing our best to be there for you. And as you have this conversation, you schedule in 10 minutes a day for each child to have connection. Those kids, even though you are not home most of the time, they will still know that their parents really value them because you're spending special emotional connection time with them. You're providing that support. The Lord will help us in Jesus' name. I will end by saying, circling back to what the Lord is highlighting for us in this verse. Do not be afraid of what you're bearing around you. Do not be afraid of what is happening parenting the digital age. You are able to do it. We have God, we have strategies. People have done it and we can do it. Do not be afraid. But one thing you must do is to be seen fighting for your families, whatever that might be for you. Whatever that might be for you. And it might be you taking a path that is not common amongst your friends, and people can ridicule you. And for me, one of those decisions was saying that my children will not have phone early when their mates were having phones, age of 10, 11. My daughter is going to be 16. That's when she's going to get a phone, if she's waited. I'm talking of smartphone. Of course, I got her a dumb phone and she really did not like it. She threw it away. She would prefer not to go with any. She's okay. But we have conversations around it. At a point, I'm saying, are you ready to do it? And I promise that if you wait till 16, you get $1,000 or £1,000, whichever one. So she's eagerly waiting. She's even discussing with her friends. Some friends are encouraging her. Wait. And she said, I will even tempt her. I said, do you want to get your phone right now? I said, no. I'm waiting. And you can't fight over that. That comes with relationship. It comes with getting their buy-in. So for me, it's making that decision when friends were really don't understand what I was doing and they were really claiming and they were like, you don't give your kids phone and then, yeah, it's uncommon. Parenting is harder with it. But that's another conversation for another day. So I will end here by saying we need to be proactive in protecting our children and families from the negative influences out there in the digital world. And we can do it. And we are in this together. And we have God. So we shouldn't be afraid of it. Thank you for this time. And I'm so glad that you've been here with me and you're riding with me in this journey. I am ready to take your question or hand it over to the coordinator. Thank you so much. I think I can stop sharing for now.
All right. Thank you so much. I see somebody has a question about the slide. She was asking for number 7 to 9 for the navigating technologies parts.
Slide what? 7?
Navigating technologies, the second slide of navigating technologies.
Okay. I can share that again.
No problem. Thank you very much. Well, while we are waiting for you to share it, can we just let Mrs. Funmi know how much we appreciate her? That was an amazing session. That was an amazing session, and I loved every bit of it. Especially the part when she mentioned that, she said time is the currency of intimacy and parenting. That really struck a chord because there's no way we want to throw it. There's no way we want to arrange it. There's no way we want to, just put things together. We see that at the end of the day, all of this is still hanging on the foundation of spending time and then building a foundation of faith. And it just re-echoes all the things that we say we do and we stand for in Families Arising. It was just like we're just re-echoing all our core values and our mission. It was just so good. We say, understand, I think it was even in our current fall semester, we've spoken about having a foundation and a vision for your family, a vision for your parenting. What kind of parent do you want to be? What kind of vision do you see for your family? Where do you want to be as a family? How do you re-echo your values in your family? What are the things you do every day? The every day that leads to the future for your family, for your community, and your nation as a whole. Because at the end of the day, if you get your family right, you really do get your community right, you get the nation right, and everything just continues to add on from there. It was such a beautiful session. And as you were speaking, I had a question because you said, I love the fact that you mentioned that, what parenting is harder now. That's number one. Parenting is harder now. And then, especially for those in diaspora, unlike where we're in Nigeria, you have a lot of help. You can have a living nanny. You can have a nanny, a cleaner that comes and goes. You have your sisters. You have parents coming over. But you're in diaspora and you don't have any of this. You're just like a one-man show. You even have to work. And then God bless your heart if you now have toddlers that constantly demand your attention. How do you now navigate trying to meet your needs, being intentional about your parenting, and then also fulfilling the demands of your work? Because all of those things will happen. And I'm seeing that, we need to give time. How do we give time? We're only one being and we have only 124 hours. Are you really saying that we need to give up some things of ourselves because we want to fulfill the parenting mandate?
Is that a question for me?
Yes, that's a question.
Okay. So if I get it correctly, you're saying with all the challenges that we face, are we supposed to give up our other things for the purpose of parenting?
Yes.
Okay. Of course, we will not give up all other things that we're supposed to do. Many of us are leaders in our own sphere of influence, and we still need to do to carry out the mandate of God in whatever field or area He has called us into. In addition to parenting, except for some people, if God has called you that your main work is just to raise these kids for me, and there are people like that, which is fine. But in the midst of that, we need to strike a balance, like I said. So one of the first things, like I said, is that first of all, have a structure. A lot of things will be easy if we have structure. And that looks like on a daily basis, what should your kids be doing at what particular point in time? And you get kids early to really align with that. For example, I have a toddler as well. I have my senior, I have a child that is 2 years old. And in the midst of that, even though I've enjoyed some help from my parents when they come visiting, for them, being able to put structure in place has helped me to do a number of other things, even with just having kids. If you don't have structure, it means it looks like your kids don't even know what time they go to bed. What time is your dinner? So there's a lot of things we can do to really to really organize our lives. And it means for me, when I was in Canada, when we didn't have any help, what I do is that when I do major cooking, I do it once a month, like cooking soup. It's just one weekend. And my husband is the king of organization. And you will like, why are you stressing yourself? And there's things you need to do. So I'll cook soup. If it is a goosey soup, a soup, all those kind of things, I cook them in bulk, put them in bowls, store them in freezer. We don't have light problem. So we need to be able to use what we have to our own advantage. In Nigeria, if I do that, maybe I'll be burning fuel just to keep my freezer warm, cold. But here I have light. So I cook once week, one weekend. So I'm just bringing things out. Even when it comes to like jollof rice, I cook by weekend for the week, not for the month, but for soup is for the month. So I put those in my own planning. And then when kids come, when they come home, the time they started to go to school themselves, sometimes they know the code to enter the house. And I told them, well, this is what you're going to do from this time to this time. When I come back, I'll check. And you have done that. You do your piano, you do your homework, and we have time that we'll do devotion together. We have time that we'll debrief and we'll talk together. We put those structure. By this time, we have to go to sleep. Even though it's not 100% that is followed, but then you still come back once they're trying to miss, and we come back to say, no, this is what we are doing. Our sleeping time is this. I was having this family meeting with my kids almost every week. And we're discussing what went well this week. What do we need to plan for next week? How can we, any problem or challenges that I see, we'll put it on the fridge and we'll discuss it at family meetings. And then we say, okay, this is what happened. This is what we need to do next. So that everybody is able. There was a time my husband left Canada to UK. He was here 2 years before we joined him. I was there with those kids alone, and we have structure. I was not cooking as much as I was cooking. But because I put things in place, I was still able to do other things. I wrote my book during that time. I was still able to attend something. I was hosting workshops for parents a couple of times before COVID. So we can put structure is going to help us a lot because we're not going to get any less busy. So putting those things in place will really help us. We can't give up whatever our core mandate or whatever God has called us to do because we are parenting. We need to put structure. You have a toddler, get them to sleep early. That time that they have slept. Maybe that's the time you have to do other things. And once we put those things and they get into that routine, it's much easier. It's much easier. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yes, you did. I have some questions here,
Yes.
but I don't know if anybody wants to speak or ask their own questions before I go ahead and ask the other questions that I have with me.
And if I can add to the other question I just had, another thing is you can work together with people, your community of friends, have trusted family friends that you can help each other. There are times when when we see drop kids, and we have a couple of friends. And when I was coming to Canada, I was going to where I got a house was where I know I have a couple of friends that we were friends from school. So they're already in the city I was going to. So it was easy. So somebody had already told me that. So I got a house close to them. We're helping each other. So it could be your turn to pick kids in school from daycare. So somebody will be picking, the other parents will have some time. So having that kind of supportive community also helps in diaspora. So when we don't have help, we don't have people, we can work together, we can support each other. Somebody is going to pick, we have groups that we share pepper, share meat, all those kind of things. And somebody says, okay, I'll pick for you. So this person is speaking for everybody and dropping. The other person next time is speaking. So that support system also helps. Okay.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. So one question says that how can we identify addiction in younger children, especially when they have to use digital devices for schoolwork, for socializing, and how do we now shield them from it and interventions that we can use to implement this prevention of addiction?
Yeah. So one of the signs of addiction is when a child has been working or playing game or doing something on the technology and you're seeing that time is off. No child wants to leave it. And they start to cry or that's not really totally entirely a sign of addiction, but every child will do that. But if it's becoming so uncontrollable that they cry for a while, they lose interest in other non-digital activities, they don't want to do that. They're just there. You're asking them to go out to play. They don't want to go. They just want to be on the computer. That side, or they're bypassing rules. They're waking up in the midnight to go and watch TV or to go and be on the gadgets. You're giving them rules. They're bypassing those rules. They always want to go there. Those are signs. And we need to begin to do something about it. And something about it could mean put that structure. Second thing is you have to use internet filtering and monitoring device. Talk with the kids and have conversation and say, this is what we have observed. But from now, for us as parents and for you as well, to keep all of us safe, we need to put this internet filtering device into place to protect all of us. And meaning that, so whatever site is you go is going to tell us, or whatever, it's going to limit how much time you're able to do. So there was a time that, because there's so many other voices out there, they say, okay, a child should have like 1 hour per day on technology. For me, during the week, it wasn't really working. I started it a little while, but then I changed it. I'm like, we can't do that in this home. So for a number of years now, during the week, we don't do technology. We don't do TV. Monday to Thursday. By Friday is our family night where we do movie night. Everybody watch movie together. And weekend they can play game. Then my son has 1 hour or thereabouts to play game on weekend. So putting those structure in place, limiting the time they use, it will take a while. It's not going to happen overnight when a child will just quickly get over it. Just like any form of addiction, it takes time. They will not going to like it. But you have to put those structure in place, put those boundaries in place, limit how much time they use, and find other things to replace that time. Find other things. In those days, when my son was younger, I used to buy Lego. I spent money buying those Legos, building those structure, build it. puzzles and all that, activities, reading together. There are times that I was sitting with him and we're reading. There are other things. You need to find other non-technology activity to fit, to really slot in to take the place of of technology overuse. So that will help. So just put those structures in place. There are times that, and you have to agree with the kids ahead of time. This is what is going to happen. This is how much time you have on technology going forward. I don't want to hear you do this. We don't want technology in the bedroom. You have to put all those rules and guidelines in place. And kids will always make mistakes. So one thing you need to do is to agree ahead of time what a relatable or a reasonable consequences will be for that. So if you do this, it might be you will lose your technology privilege for 1 week. If I see you, hiding to take iPad to go and do this, to go and do that, this is the consequence. Ahead of time, we need to agree with those kids. And when kids do make mistake, we are not going to shout or scream or beat them. We're simply going to follow through on the plans that we have agreed on. I'm just going to have conversation with them. Oh, I see that you made a mistake. You really went to use technology where you're not supposed to do that. And we have spoken about this. What did we agree on? And the child will repeat, yes, we agree that if you do this, this is what's going to happen. Okay, so I'm sorry, I believe in you that next time you'll make a better choice. But for now, you're going to really put in place the consequences that you have agreed. So for the next 1 week or 2 weeks, there's no technology for you. You don't have to shout. The child might not like it, but once we begin to, follow through, it's what we have agreed with that child. It's easy for them to really trust, to really believe in you, take us seriously. Because if a child starts to beg, Mommy, I'm sorry, I won't do that again, and then you say, okay, next time don't do that. No, you're failing in that regard because you had an agreement. So your job as a parent is to follow through and to say, we agreed on this, and this is what's going to happen. There's always consequences for every action. And kids need to start to learn consequences from our home before they go outside. So this is what we agreed on. That's what's going to happen. And kids will always make mistakes. But that's okay. But you're training them. But have consequences and follow through with it. So I don't know if I've answered your question.
Love it, love it. I love it a lot. It's almost like saying charity begins at home. That's it. So there are two questions I'm going to ask as one because they're quite similar. You spoke about discernment, that we should teach our children. The first person is asking, how can we teach our children to discern between good information and bad information out there, especially when they are under a certain age? And the second one is talking about, we're in a new culture. How do we teach them about privacy and respect for new cultures, even when they are online? So it doesn't seem as though they are disrespectful.
Privacy and new culture.
Yes.
Relation to
usage of social media, and then teaching them to discern between good information there and bad information for younger children.
Mm-hmm. So it's by teaching them. Because what you don't teach them, they won't know. And you don't want a situation where a child is getting to know about something from outside, from friends in school. We need to talk to them. We need to teach them what is good or what is bad, what is appropriate, what is not appropriate, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. There's a book called Good Picture, Bad Picture. It's a very good book for young kids to talk about pornography and all those bad pictures. You need to start to tell them about that. I taught my kids a lot about that. That sometimes you see some advertisement, you need to come and tell your parents. We need to be able to say, this is normal. When you see naked picture of people and all that, you need to teach them what is not appropriate. When you see that, shut down your computer and come and report to your parents. We need to continue to tell them why that is not good, why that is not appropriate. Without us teaching them, there's no how they're going to know. So it comes by training them, by teaching them in an age-appropriate way. In an age-appropriate way. And if kids are online, and the same way thing goes on, like your kids are already using social media, they're online, you need to tell them what is appropriate behavior. Whatever you cannot say to someone in real life, face-to-face, you don't have to say that. You don't have to be rude or disrespectful online. It comes by teaching, it's called by training, and then we model to them. They see how we relate to people, how we talk to people, what our activities are, what we talk about. The kids will begin to really follow after our footsteps. So we need to model with our own life. We need to do a lot of training. It's very important. Many parents overlook that training because they won't know. And then you need to teach them and infuse your own values in it. This is why we don't do this. You might see some kids in your school, having fun. As when my kids was in grade 5, she would come back and tell me of movies that people are talking about in the class. These are sexually graphic movies. I'm like, and they're talking about different things, using different terminology that is really inappropriate. And then I would talk to them in line with our values. I would teach them scriptures. There's a particular scripture. At the time, my daughter was asking me, is it wrong to kiss? Is it wrong to date? All those kind of things. Then I have brought, sometimes you don't have that answer right away. There's nothing wrong with you telling the kids, interesting question. I'll come back to you. And then use that time to find your own answer. And then you make sure you are coming back to that child. Because if you don't provide answers to them, they will go find answers somewhere else. And we have to be truthful. We have to be factual. We have to tell them the facts without being overly graphic. We have to do it in an age-appropriate way. But one thing you want to do, you want to be the first set of messages, the first set of teachers that your kids are listening to about things that they will eventually see outside. If you're not talking about pornography and they're hearing it outside, there's a time my daughter came back from school. I said, Mommy, what is oral sex? Because people were talking about it in school, in the class. So first of all, if you have not established that open communication, she will come back and she'll probably find a way to go and Google or something. But of course, she won't be able to Google because I have internet filtering and monitoring that won't bring such information. But imagine things like that children are not coming to tell us because there's a lot of things that you'll be shocked. This is grade 6. And they're talking about this, they're talking about that. So we need to use what I call teachable moments. There are things you don't even sometimes wait for them to come to you. There are things you just see in the news or you hear, you really bring to them. I heard something about this today. Have you seen such things before? Is anybody in your class talking about this kind of thing? You bring that conversation up. Let them have an atmosphere to talk about it. Use that to now slot in your own values and say, this because the Bible says this, we don't do this. So when she was asking about kissing and all that, is it a sin? And now put a scripture in Songs of Solomon which says, sisters, please do not awaken love until it is time and you are ready for it. There are 2 passages in the scripture. The Bible mentioned that. It said, do not awaken it, do not stir up. I said, why we want to kiss? Why we want to, do not awaken it and stir it up until the time is right. So we use the scripture to teach them what is appropriate, what is right. And of course, that they should be respectful. We need to be able to scan and see what is happening and then be proactive in teaching our kids. Recently, my daughter has some friends in Canada. One of them, she's just about 15 plus. So she told me, this person is going on a date. I said, where? From where? It was like, she was the one that even went to the guy and asked if they could go on a date. I'm like, really? What is dating? Actually, how would? So before I know that, okay, when that starts to happen around their age, we need to really equip our kids. So before you know it, in fact, that week I went to Amazon. I bought a book. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, Lady in Waiting. It's a book about dating, courtship, all those kind of things. And I bought that. I'm going to present it to my daughter. We're going to read it together. It has journaling and things different. God biblical ways and principles of going about this. We need to teach them. We need to get that book. We need to engage them. That is really, bringing counter narrative to this cultural information that they're hearing. Biblical perspective. Using the scripture to bring out values and to teach them. I don't know if I've answered those questions.
Yes, you have. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Also, one is asking for the name of the book. I believe is Lady in Waiting.
Lady in Waiting. by
Yes.
Jackie Kendall and Debbie Jones. You'll see it on Amazon. It's really voluminous.
Okay.
It's about
Thank you.
400 pages, but most of those pages includes a journal, day, and different questions, different things they would write on the.
All right. Thank you so much. I know that you mentioned that you lost your voice and you still were able to do this with us. We appreciate you. And I know that every other person feels the same way. Thank you for your time. Thank you for
Thank
re-echoing
you.
some of the things that we've constantly said in Families Arising. And we hope that we're going to get the slides because I see everybody's getting
Ah,
asking for it.
oh,
But we
well,
can assure them that they'll get the recording. So maybe they'll just follow
yes,
through on that.
recording.
But
Yes,
thank
of course.
you.
I'm sure you're recording.
So thank you so much, Mrs. Funmi and the team of Rise to Parents. So they're no longer parenting Grace.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much. And we pray that the Lord blesses you and keeps you in
Mm,
perfect peace.
mm,
All
mm.
right.